That's one way of doing it. But again, you can't do it all by taxing people or getting more money. You have to do some means testing. That's important. But you also have to do some benefit restructuring. There's no question about it. But nobody wants to do benefit restructuring. The reason Obama didn't do Simpson Bowles, the real reason, anybody have an idea why he didn't do Simpson Bowles? I mean, you know, they said we couldn't get any votes for it, but that was BS. Why didn't he go ahead and embrace Simpson Bowles and try to get it passed?
He never got reelected.
Well, because he never would have gotten reelected. I actually disagree. I think if he'd shown strong leadership and solved the debt problem, it would have helped his reelection chances, because the economy would have, I think, exploded if we ever dealt with the debt courageously. But that's what his advisors told him. They said, are you crazy? You're going to be the first one to talk about limiting Social Security and limiting Medicare and raising the age limit? Let the Republicans do it. You know that old commercial, let Mikey eat it? Let the Republicans do it. And along came the Republicans' Mikey, Paul Ryan, with a budget that was disastrous from the standpoint of senior citizens. It would have eviscerated Medicare, And the great irony of it is, how did President Obama do staying away from that, letting Paul Ryan, who wound up on the ticket, talk about it? How did President Obama do with senior citizens? No, he lost senior citizens. He lost the vote. So that was one of Romney's best demographics, is over 65. Because people are interested in leaders who lead. People are interested in leaders who have courage, who are willing to make difficult decisions. The second and last thing I'll say is guns. In the book, now I wrote the book before, I wrote the book before Aurora, right before Aurora, but after Virginia Tech and after Tucson, where Gabby Giffords got shot. I said after Tucson that the president, who normally was not a wuss, the president took on some very difficult issues. His advisors told him not to do health care all at once, to do the insurance reforms first, because those were the popular things. And the president instinctively knew he'd never have the votes that he would have in his first 2 years. And if he was going to get it through, if he was going to end the absolute national disgrace of us not having health care for all of our people, he had to do it in the first 2 years. He took chances there. He took chances on TARP. Remember, TARP was incredibly unpopular when he supported it. He could have said, that's a Bush program, I'm out. The auto bailout, everybody loves the auto bailout now. But think back, everyone hated the auto bailout. 10% of Americans favored the auto bailout in polls. But the president knew that all of our entire manufacturing core depended on the auto, it depends on housing and the auto industry, and we couldn't let both of them go down the tubes. So he's basically been very courageous. On guns, he punted. After Tucson, and you know, what happened at Newtown makes everything before it look like a walk in the park. But we forget, at Tucson, it was a brutal shooting by a guy with, again, a multi-clip magazine, 33 clips, 33 bullets in the clip. And he shot and killed, I think, 5 people and injured 14 or 15 more. Included in the dead was that 9-year-old girl whose only sin was she wanted to go see her hero, a congresswoman, talk at the mall. And that girl was the granddaughter of Dallas Green, the former Phillies manager and general manager. A little 9-year-old girl. Well, after Tucson, the president flew and made a great speech, as he did after Aurora, as he did after Newtown. And we all grieved together and said, you know, we're going to get through this as a community. We all congratulated the first responders and the brave people who took Loeffner down, all those things. The president actually invited the family of the 9-year-old girl and the Hispanic intern who shielded, after Gabby was shot, he shielded her body. He literally laid on top of her to make sure that she didn't suffer any more bullet wounds. He invited both of them, the family and the Hispanic intern, to sit in Mrs. Obama's box during the State of the Union. Now, when outsiders sit in the box at the State of the Union, it's always because they're mentioned in the speech. Well, the president mentioned everyone who was in Michelle's box during his State of the Union speech except the family of the 9-year-old and the Latino intern. he was asked the next day at a press conference, his press secretary was asked, why didn't the president mention him and why didn't he say anything about gun control? The press secretary said, well, he's going to do that in a separate press conference in the near future. Well, you know when the near future was? 2 years later, after Aurora, he didn't say anything after Aurora, it took the slaughter, execution, literally execution of 26 and 7-year-olds for the president to do anything. Now, would it have worked after Tucson? Would it have worked after Aurora? Who knows? Will it work after Newtown? Who knows? As Gabby Gifford said, be bold, be courageous, stand up to the NRA. The great irony of it is the polls show them, the congressman, that the American people want them to be bold and courageous, that it isn't so bold and courageous. You're looking at me. I ran successfully for governor 3 times, primary and 2 general elections. I was opposed by the NRA in every single election. This is the 2nd biggest state in terms of NRA membership, behind only Texas, and I won by 10, 12, and 21 percentage points. So how tough is the NRA? But they can get 1,000 letters and emails into the congressman's office, and we never write. But in the end, it shouldn't be just about balancing whether I'm going to get reelected or not get reelected. It should be about doing the right thing. I mean, I titled all my own chapters. Not only did I write every word of this book myself, I didn't want a ghostwriter because I enjoy writing. In fact, I had a great time writing the book. I don't know if anybody's had a great time reading it, but I had a great time writing it. But the author wanted to title the chapters, and I said, no, I'm titling the chapters. And my favorite title, I like them all, but my favorite title is Stand and Defend, There Are Some Things Worth Losing For. And by that I mean, if you run for political office, and there's nothing that you care enough about that you're going to risk losing for, then save us the trouble. Don't run. We have to have people elected to office who have a core set of beliefs, and those beliefs are going to be inviolate. And they're going to draw a line in the sand. And again, I know when to compromise. I know when to compromise. I compromised for 8 years as governor because I had a Republican legislature. I got movement on every single thing I talked about in the 2002 campaign, significant movement. And one of my chapters is called Know When to Hold 'Em, Know When to Fold 'Em. But there's some things that the line in the sand has to be drawn. And you have to risk your rear end. And the interesting thing is sometimes you risk your rear end and you lose. Sometimes you risk your rear end and you win. John Quincy Adams was a senator from Massachusetts after his dad was president. And there was a trade bill which would have been excellent for Massachusetts, but extraordinarily harmful for the nation. Jack Kennedy wrote about John Quincy Adams' courage in voting against it. Even though it would have benefited Massachusetts, it would have hurt the United States of America. John Quincy Adams wrote a note to one of his fellow senators. He said, I know this vote will get me recalled, but I couldn't stay here if I voted for it. In those days, senators were appointed by the state legislature. They weren't popularly elected. And John Quincy Adams was right. He was recalled within 2 weeks after his vote, but he went on to become president of the United States. Because in the end, people don't always have to agree with you. People have to say, hey, this guy's a strong leader. He's got the guts and the courage to do what he says. When I was DA, it's so long ago, I don't know if anybody will remember, but Delbert, Africa, the MOVE people who hid out in the house, this is the first one, not the one where the house burned down. Delbert, Africa was a villain. Everyone hated him. And they killed a policeman that day. There was a firefight. They wouldn't get out of the house. And they all surrendered finally. And Delbert, Africa surrendered. And there was a picture of him later coming out like this. Clearly had no weapons in his hand. And he came out the back of the house where the press wasn't. At least the police thought the press wasn't. And the police proceeded to not only handcuff him, but beat the living daylights out of him with rifle butts and kicking him. They broke a couple of ribs, they busted his jaw, et cetera, et cetera.